And one of the most honest things that you can do as a leader is to be clear and transparent with your team members in real time. Give them that coaching and development, follow up with them, and tell them before you get to a PIP why changing their behaviors, their actions, their outcomes matters. You're listening to HR Superstars, a podcast brought to you by 15Five. On this show, we talk to strategic people leaders who are making a meaningful impact in their organizations and shaping the future of work. So get ready to be inspired and discover the secrets behind building high-performing teams and fostering a culture of growth and thriving. The future of HR starts here. Hey everyone, it's Karina Young, VP of People at 15Five. And today I want to talk to you about an acronym that often goes hand in hand with HR, for better or for worse. And that is a PIP, a performance improvement plan. I am sure the last time you met someone who is in HR, or maybe you're the HR person who met someone new, a PIP somehow came up in that conversation. Because it seems that we are inevitably tied to PIPs, what they mean, what they represent. But oftentimes people just get PIPs wrong. Employees get it wrong. Organizations get it wrong. And so today I want to try to set us right a little bit on what PIPs really are, why they matter, and how they can be an incredible tool for growth and development. Now, let me start with why do PIPs even need to happen in the workplace? Why are they necessary? The idea I want to share with you all today is that a PIP is about bringing back two paths that have diverged from one another. When you are in your role, doing well, receiving coaching, feedback, recognition, everything that you need to be successful, it's really easy to continue to be successful and grow and develop in the right way. But when expectations and reality of a job start to diverge, that's when a performance improvement plan, a development plan, whatever you want to call it, really makes a difference and is actually helpful to bring those two things back together. A PIP is really about giving clarity where ambiguity existed before. Sometimes this means you've entered a role without a clear description. Maybe your manager hasn't set the right expectations for you on what needs to be done, or you're just not getting consistent enough signal about if you're doing well or not. And so a performance improvement plan should be not the first time you hear feedback, let me be clear on that, but it needs to be about creating some formality and clarity around what isn't working today and how can it be better. And an important thing, the root of that idea there is that you have to believe somebody getting a performance improvement plan can do better. It is a plan for improvement. If you don't believe that the person in this role can be successful, or you as a leader or in a company are not interested in investing in that time, please don't give them a PIP. You are besmirching the name and the acronym PIP for all the rest of us. You are giving it the bad reputation that it has out in the world today. Because most employees enter a PIP thinking, well, this is just a way for my organization to exit me. And it is not that. A performance improvement plan is about formalizing what success can and should look like in a fair way that is clearly documented for everyone involved, for the employee, for the organization, for the manager, so that there's no guesswork around what do we need to do to get there and when will we measure if we've gotten there on time or not. That is the kind of dignity and respect every employee deserves, and companies should be prioritizing giving to their people. What I really love about performance improvement plans is they force managers to be specific on what is and isn't working. It takes out the bias, that gut instinct, the feeling of, oh yeah, this person isn't doing well in their job, but I don't really quite know why. That doesn't cut it for a performance improvement plan. You need measurable, specific data points on, again, what is and isn't working. And not everything has to be numbers-based, right? It's not just that this person didn't hit their metrics or they didn't achieve their onboarding goals within the directed time frame. It can be behavioral. It can be a violation of company policy or a violation of company values. It can be something that is on the interpersonal side just as much as it is on the delivery of work side of things. As long as you are specific and you give this person specific notes on how to get better. As an example, one of the things I often see come up in performance improvement plans is communication styles. Maybe someone isn't communicating enough to their team. Maybe the way they do it doesn't inspire collaboration and connection with their team members in the way that you want. Or maybe their communication actually just doesn't deliver the message that needs to be delivered well enough, fast enough, or in high enough quality. And so putting a metric around that in your performance improvement plan is reasonable and should be done, especially as you have people moving in more senior levels in their roles. But again, you just have to be specific, and that's really in favor and in service to the employee themselves. What I really think ultimately performance plan is, though, if I take a step back and look at it holistically, is a performance improvement plan is just a structured opportunity to get better. It is inspired by a desire to see growth and development in that person. And again, that's where both the employee and the manager have to enter a performance plan feeling that there is a chance here to make this right. And in order to actually get to that point, it is the manager's responsibility that feedback has been delivered consistently with clarity and with specific actions for improvement up until that point. If you deliver a performance improvement plan and this is the first time your employee has ever heard that something is wrong, then you're doing this wrong. And you're doing them and your company an incredible disservice. HR leaders have to hold their managers and their companies to a higher standard than that. I cannot count the number of times a manager has come to me wanting to put a team member on a PIP, and when I ask them for evidence of feedback, I get nothing, literally zero. Or maybe what I'll actually get are a couple of Slack messages between the manager and employee that are so vague and unclear that any feedback is being delivered that I can't even figure out what the feedback is in the message. This is the part where HR gets to be a strategic partner to the manager and really have that eye of discernment to say, you have delivered feedback in a way that this person should have received it with their best ability, or you haven't. You actually haven't been clear enough with them. And before we even talk about a PIP, I need you to sit down with them and tell them today what's going on and what they can do to improve outside of a plan. They deserve that from you. One other thing I will note about a PIP is oftentimes a PIP is really about revealing a role mismatch more than it is in a lack of skill or a lack of will in someone's job. Sometimes we apply to or we hire people into roles that they're simply not a fit for, but they could still bring a lot of other great skills and qualities and attributes to your organization. I've been in a situation before where I had an employee on a PIP, and even though they didn't pass that PIP successfully, at the end of the process, what we all walked away learning was that this person actually was an incredible add to our company, to our culture, to this team. We just had them in the wrong role. And so the outcome of the PIP was actually that we're going to transition them short term into a new role to see if that would set them up for better success. And ultimately, this person onboarded into their new role, hit all their milestones in their first 30, 60, 90 days, and ended up going on to have a really successful career in a new position. It was a win for all of us. A PIP doesn't have to be scary if you truly believe that someone deserves and has the opportunity to grow and improve. Now, let's talk a little bit about how a PIP can actually be a positive moment for an employee's growth. Now, I know that sounds like a complete oxymoron to hear, but let me tell you a quick story. I once worked with someone who spent years in an organization that was dedicated to employee growth and development. It was one of their core tenets on what they offered and what they committed to each employee. And a part of that commitment was that almost every single person in the company at one point or another, from their C-level executives to their earliest entry employees, had all been on a PIP at one point or another. Now, that might sound absolutely frightening to someone who is not in that company and who comes in with the baggage of PIPs that most of us do, right? That sounds terrible. Like if you have everyone on a PIP, is everybody just doing poorly at their job? But it wasn't. I want to help you reframe yourself around a PIP the way this person really shaped it for me. And what they shared with me on their experience was that in this company, because growth and development is so important to them, again, it's a core tenet of who they are and how they want to be known to candidates, to people who work there, to their alumni, that a performance improvement plan was just a totally normal, acceptable way to bring clarity and shared alignment around what great looks like in a role. Because when you hire really great talent, it's easy for them to be successful in the role you've hired them for. But if you continue to grow and grow them, they should actually be challenged every time they enter a new role. And this company believed that failure was totally normal and okay as long as it was addressed early and clearly and with empathy. So, a manager was expected, as soon as someone was starting to show signs of not doing well, to put a PIP in place. Their PIPs were really lightweight, they only focused on a couple things, but it was really about taking the guesswork out of an employee's job and an employee's success. And again, brought a level of self awareness to the employee about, hey, you are a great member of this team and we love having you here. You've done well so far, but you're not doing well on this particular part of your job. And we care enough about you and we believe that you should be a part of this company's future that we're going to put this plan in place. And as your manager, I'm going to work on this together with you. I'm going to ensure that you come off of this successful in the next 30 days. Now, that can be inspiring and was inspiring to a lot of employees at this organization. They actually really felt that being on this PIP journey was almost a badge of honor. People started to share with each other that they had been on PIPs, if they had done one, what was it like doing it with their manager. It was a really incredible thing that led to a lot of meaningful coaching moments that we all wish would happen. I mean, I think every leader in HR is hoping that the kind of coaching we want is going on in one-to-one conversations. But a performance improvement plan ensures that it's going to happen because everyone is being held accountable to this plan, the manager and the employee. And oftentimes what would happen in this organization that normalized PIPs is people would come off the plans not only stronger in their jobs, but a stronger employee overall. Their level of self-awareness, of self-care about their job, of the high quality work they wanted to deliver would raise as they would come off of these PIPs. And it was a thing that people looked forward to because they believed that this was their manager investing in their growth, not punishing them. Because if either of the P's in PIP stands for punishment, then you're setting everyone up for failure.
HR has changed from support function to strategic powerhouse, but traditional HR software hasn't caught up. 15Five's performance management platform helps your HR team discover where to take action and make a business impact. Find out how to maximize employee performance, engagement, and retention at 15five.com or click the link in the show notes.
Let's talk about common misconceptions most employees have around PIPs. Now, before I get into this, I want to say that I recognize for a lot of people and a lot of organizations, these misconceptions are reality. That the way managers or the company or even employees have approached a PIP have been far from ideal. But I believe that it is our responsibility as HR leaders to show up differently, to instill a better foundation than what we had, what we've seen, and be continuously seeking ways to make our organizations and our people better. And so my hope is that even though we talk about these things being half myths today, that in the near future, they can all be myths and all be really relics of the past for us. Now, the first one that comes up majority of the time from employees is this just a way for you to fire me? Is a PIP just a secret plan for you to term me and you have no belief in my success? And the reality is no. A performance improvement plan should be a genuine effort from a manager to help their employee improve and grow. Because I'll tell you, if a company wanted to term someone, they would be able to find a way to do that, oftentimes without a PIP, although some unfortunately do use it that way. But as a leader, you should have more integrity in yourself and the team than you're building and show up with PIPs that are within reason for people to successfully achieve. Now, if an employee has gone so far off the path of success in their role that the gap is incredibly wide and it's going to be difficult for them to achieve it, then maybe there is some truth in here that it is reasonable that a term could end up happening. But that's really about the employee needing to show up and having the initiative, the self-awareness, and the desire, the intrinsic motivation to do better and to improve. Now, a second misconception that I hear a lot of is, again, that the company has already decided on my outcome. The company has already decided I'm a failure. They don't want me here. Even if I succeed, I'm going to have a scarlet letter on me. And that simply is not and should never be true. No employee in your organization should be blacklisted for simple breaks in their success, in their abilities to do their job well. We are all human and we all fail all the time. Now, failing consistently day over day, interaction after interaction is not acceptable in a role for anyone at any level. But just because you're on a PIP doesn't mean you're doomed within this organization. I've worked at companies where we've had a majority of our people come off of PIP successfully and continue to do well in the company for years to come. One organization I was at, we had a 50% success rate from performance improvement plans, which was incredible. That is what we wanted. That was the goal of these. It wasn't to shame someone or make them feel bad. And HR needs to ensure that their managers are entering these performance improvement plans, one, with being open-minded, being compassionate and empathetic to what it takes, how hard it could be to get through it, but then also give this person a fresh start once they've come off and once they've shown success for a sustained period of time. The last myth I want to address is that a PIP is just HR paperwork. Now, let me tell you something. As an HR leader, the last thing I want or need is more paperwork in my life, and so should every other HR leader. If something feels like just a check the box activity with no real thought or intention or meaning behind it, then you shouldn't be doing it. You shouldn't run any program that feels meaningless to your employees. A performance improvement plan from your HR team and in partnership with your HR team is, again, really about showing that desire to want to grow someone in their role and at the organization. A good PIP requires serious manager involvement. This isn't even from HR. We're there as a strategic partner to your manager. We're a coach to your manager. But I'm not the one managing your PIP. I'm not the one who makes the call. It is your leader who is owning and driving this. And that needs to be made very clear during the conversation. And the manager needs to show up consistently that way throughout the process. One more myth I want to bring up that I've heard from time to time is that the people who get put on PIPs are punished because of their personality, because of internal politics. There's some reason other than performance that this is happening. And in reality, a PIP should be based on observable behaviors and observable decisions made that lead to clear, measurable outcomes that are below expectations for a role. A bad PIP feels like formality, and a good PIP feels like a roadmap. And what every employee with a PIP should leave feeling like is, I know exactly what I need to do in the next 30, 60 days to be successful. I know exactly how I'm going to be measured, and I feel confident in my ability to get there. That's the goal of how you want to leave a performance improvement plan conversation. So what are some tips on how you can design a better PIP, a PIP that actually helps employees improve, helps them feel like you're invested in their growth and development, and gives them a chance to be successful in the long run? Because one thing we haven't talked about yet that's really important is the cost of termination and the cost of not doing a PIP well. If you're going to spend 30 days pipping someone who you don't plan to retain, so you've now wasted 30 days of that manager's time, of your time, and this employee's time. You are wasting whatever severance you may or may not be offering them after they exit the PIP. You're also wasting time on the recruiting team to go out and hire and interview people and make an offer to bring someone new in at a different salary, potentially a higher level, a higher salary, to onboard them, to get them ramped up enough that they're actually effective in that role. That is months of time between the PIP, the term decision, hiring, and onboarding. When you go out with a PIP as a strategic HR leader, you should be thinking about, this is the best way to invest my manager's time and this employee's time, because if I can get them back on track in 30 days, that's a win for the company. It saves us on cost. It saves us on time and energy for going out and hiring. And it actually saves us on all the institutional, cultural knowledge that we might lose from this person. So you really want to make sure that that performance improvement plan is set up as well as it can be. And you're really giving this person the best opportunity for success. The first thing that you do there is identify specific performance gaps. Don't be vague. Needs to improve communication is not specific enough. Needs to lead weekly stakeholder meetings and deliver top 3 priorities to all people in that meeting is better. Needs to provide weekly stakeholder updates via email and respond to questions within 24 hours is even better than that. Get really specific on what does great look like in this role. Because again, if you believe that this person should be at your company and developing, you don't want them just doing this for the 30 days. You want them doing this for weeks and months after that to understand what success looks like in the role. The metrics should also just be very clear across the board. If they're in sales, the target should be made clear. If they are a project manager or a product manager, the deliverables and the deadlines need to be mapped out. Maybe they work on the customer support or service side, and you need to talk about calls per hour, ticket responses, SLA times. There's always a metric in every job that you can come back to. So work with your managers to find the most important metrics that would signal this person has the skills we need in this role and can be successful long term. Now, the third thing that this is where the HR coaching and consulting side really comes in is that you need real support and buy-in from your manager. And what I mean is that this manager needs to be involved on a week-over-week basis in measuring this person's success, in giving them real-time coaching and feedback, and having the belief that this person can change and is worthy of being on their team and continued part of this organization. Simply monitoring is not good enough and just won't cut it in a good performance improvement plan. And the last thing HR really needs to make sure is that the scope of the improvements are reasonable. A PIP should be limited to 2 to 3 at most areas where you need to see outcomes and changes. 5, 6, 7 different things that have to be done in 30 days that have to fundamentally shift. You're setting this person up for failure. That's too much for one person to take on. Think about the 2 to 3 most critical things they have to do to be successful that are detrimenting the team, the business, and focus on those. This means you as an HR leader are really going to have to work with your managers to stress test the points that they bring up. Many times managers have come to me with recommendations for things on a PIP that just don't make sense. They're not important. They're not critical to someone's job. They're actually things that aren't really even that critical to the business. And so don't just show up and say yes and copy and paste into a document. Really be a thought partner to your leaders and to the employee. Now, this brings me to another area around PIPs I really want to talk about, which is the role of communication in a successful PIP. You will hear me talk time and time again about how important communication is as a people leader in any organization. But especially when it comes to performance improvement plans, PIPs will fail when communication stops. This comes back to the idea of a manager being active and engaged in the process. Before a PIP is sent out to an employee, HR should be spending time with that manager to ensure that how they're talking about why the performance improvement plan is in place, what has happened up until that date, what needs to get done, and what the consequences are really strong and crystal clear. You need to sit the manager down and you have to role play this out. You need to put yourself in the shoes of that employee and pressure test this manager. Because if they can't clearly explain the why, the what, the how, and the when of this plan, you're going to break trust with the employee. And they're going to go back to all those myths that we talked about and think that this isn't real. The company's already made a decision. I'm going to be blacklisted if I even ever get off of this. The company just wants to fire me anyway. Really putting that time in with your manager to communicate with clarity the standards that aren't being upheld, and with compassion, the support that you're offering and the belief you have in this person. Now, if you're an employee getting a PIP, what I'm going to encourage you to do is really make sure that you leave that conversation understanding, again, the who, what, where, when, and why of this plan was put into place, the role that you play in it, what you need to get done, when you need to get it done by. Ask questions that clarify so that you are really ensuring you're leaving understanding what success looks like. And if you are surprised by the PIP, share that and ask your manager. It's okay to ask them, hey, I feel like we didn't talk about this before. Can you remind me of when you gave me feedback? Can you help me understand? Not to be confrontational, but to really be clear, because maybe it was something you did miss. One of the things I see most often in HR is that I will be in a conversation with an employee and a manager, and they will both walk away with different understandings of what was said, even if it's typed out, it's clear, they follow the script. Because as individuals, we bring our own perspective, our own life to a conversation. Maybe I'm going through something that day and I'm just not totally present and aware, and I heard something that wasn't exactly what my manager said. Maybe my manager did give me feedback, but I just didn't realize how important it was. Maybe they said it, but it just didn't really click and land with me. Maybe I was in denial because getting hard feedback hurts and is tough, and I wasn't quite ready for it. There's so many reasons why you could have a disconnect with your manager. And it's just important to engage in that conversation with them. Last thing I want to say around PIPs is that the real purpose of a PIP is simple: clarity, accountability, and shared understanding of what has to change for this person to be successful. When a PIP is well done, it can be a motivator. It can be a way to really shift somebody's whole career trajectory. When someone is on a PIP and they're termed, it's an incredibly difficult experience to go through for all involved, but most that employee who loses their job, even if it was for things that they know they're good at. Again, sometimes we're just in a moment in our life where we're just not showing up well for our job. And one of the most honest things that you can do as a leader is to be clear and transparent with your team members in real time. Give them that coaching and development, follow up with them, and tell them before you get to a PIP why changing their behaviors, their actions, their outcomes matters. Tell them that they're putting their job at risk. Tell them that they're hurting the team's success. Tell them that they're misaligned from company goals. Don't just say what they're doing is wrong, but tell them why. It's one of the biggest gaps I see over and over again with manager feedback conversations. And is a really great way to make sure that you don't end up in that PIP conversation surprising everyone involved.
The performance review is dead. We're sure you've heard that one before. But is it true? Not necessarily. There's a good chance that your performance review could just use a little makeover. Luckily, 15.5 has crafted a playbook to help. In it, you'll find a thorough review of academic and industry research from a survey of over 1,000 strategic HR leaders, distilled into 5 principles to keep in mind as you design or improve your review process. Every organization has different goals and context to consider when it's designing reviews. This playbook walks through decisions, options, and trade-offs you'll encounter as you design your review process and share best practices. We'll drop a link in the show notes for you to check out.